Action after the election. There are now new reports that the president is delaying his promised immigration measures until after November's midterms. This despite the president's promise to act back in June due to what he called obstruction from Republican lawmakers. So how will this delay impact both parties during the midterms? Emily Tish Sussman is campaign director at the Center for American Progress Action Fund. She's also the former executive director of the Young Democrats of America. And Ford O'Connell, chairman of Civic Forum PAC and the former outreach director for John McCain's presidential campaign. Emily and Ford, welcome. Ford, let me start with you. Look, this measure, the executive action, we were told, was going to be the president granting legal status to 5 million illegals. Now he's delaying it. Did politics and trying to save the Democrats' keister in November play a part in this?
Well, that's absolutely it, Eric. The bottom line is King Obama decided to hold off because he knew that if he pushed basically any executive action rooted in amnesty, he'd be handing the Senate in 2014 to Republicans. Here's what most people don't know. Many of these states that the key Senate races are being fought in are states that Mitt Romney won with a more diverse electorate, and they're also states that don't have a high Hispanic population. He knows that if he did this, he'd be giving the Republicans the Senate, and that's the bottom line. He likes to play election games, and that's all that's going on here.
Emily, is this an election game?
Look, I think the big thing to point out here is that Congress has taken no action. The House has taken no action on this. The president said that he was going to give Boehner as much time as he needed to pass it. Boehner did not act on the bipartisan Senate agreement that came out of the Senate. The president has said that he would take action, and he should take action. But I do think that implicit in what Ford is talking about is the fact that national Democrats that are in these Senate seats all over the country are actually faring much better than people anticipated in states that the president did not win. So for the president to now introduce an issue that is, may bring out a little bit more of a Republican base, it's just not prudent at this time. Wait till after the election.
Eric, let me say this to Emily's point. Here's the deal. Right now, we do not have a defining issue for this election in 2014. What we do know is that 65 to 70% of America feels the country's on the wrong track. And the reason why many of these Democrats are basically treading water in a lot of these red states is because we don't have that signature issue here. If President Obama pushed an executive action with amnesty, he recognizes it would fire up the Tea Party, the Republican grassroots, and would really give the Republicans one of those issues that they need. Case in point, New Hampshire, for a while, Scott Brown was trailing Jeanne Shaheen by 20 points. Once he focused the spotlight on amnesty and what happened with the southern border crisis, he's now trailing by 5. This wouldn't just give the Republicans the Senate. It would open the floodgates, Eric.
Well, not only that, Emily, they're not the only people being outraged. You got the immigration advocates saying that they're outraged over this decision, saying that the president has broken his promises, and they're severely disappointed. So what happens when, on one hand, this decision apparently is firing up some on the right, as you can see what Ford just said about what's happening in New Hampshire, at the same time disappointing the president's base?
Certainly. Coming out of the 2012 election, it did seem like immigration was something that was going to be coming fairly quickly, both through Congress and through the president from executive action. Unfortunately, has not worked out that way. I do think that immigration advocates, something that they are acknowledging, is that if immigration did come to the forefront right now due to an executive action, and there was, although I do believe the Democrats will hold the Senate, but if there was a wave and the Republicans would grab the Senate, it would actually poison this issue for the few years in the future coming, so that immigration would be seen as something that was so difficult to act on that it would be very difficult to move forward on it.
I totally disagree with you. If we're going to get immigration reform in this country, it's going to come with a Republican president and a Republican Senate. The problem here is President Obama likes to play games, and he doesn't understand that border security first is the way to go. And even if you look at the latest Pew poll, basically more Americans are concerned about border security first than a pathway to citizenship. You guys have been playing games. The reason why we don't have anything is because at the end of the day, you are concerned about stuffing the ballot box and winning elections and not doing what's in America's best interest.
Emily, last word.
So that was very strong. But I would say that the bipartisan bill that was passed out of the Senate included the strongest border security we've seen in a long time, as well as a path to citizenship with the majority of Americans' support. If this bill came to the floor in the House, it would pass and the president would sign it into law.
Well, we know this. The election's going to happen. They're not going to have any apparent reform. The president's going to do it anyway after the election, so we'll be debating that after that happens. Emily and Ford, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.